Imagine waking up one morning, picking up your phone and seeing the exact same headline everywhere. This asset is up 300%. Someone voted just a month ago and is already a millionaire. Your friends can't stop talking about it. Influencers call it the opportunity of a lifetime. It feels like the entire world has already gotten rich, except you. And that's exactly when something far more dangerous than rising prices begins. You start to fear being left behind. A single thought takes over your mind. What if this is my only chance? The more success stories you hear, the more it feels like walking away would be the biggest mistake of your life. This is how almost every financial bubble begins. Not with money, not with charts, not even with investing. It begins with emotions. With the angle to get in before everyone else. With the feeling that if you don't buy today, tomorrow will already be too late. And here is the most fascinating part. Most people never stop to ask the most important question. Why is the price actually going up? Instead, they look at everyone around them. If everyone else is buying, it must be the right decision. That's the moment when logic quietly gives way to emotions. History has shown us that technologies change, market change, assets change, but human psychology barely changes at all. And that's exactly why financial bubbles keep happening again and again.
Humans like to believe they make independent decisions. But in uncertain moments, we instinctively look at everyone else. Psychologists call this social proof. Investors know it as FOMO, the fear that everyone else is moving forward without you. Every bubble begins with a story people want to believe. Not because they're irrational, but because hope spreads faster than caution.
Imagine someone offered to sell you an ordinary flower. Not gold, not rain gemstone, not a priceless work of art, just a simple tulip. And then they promised that just in a few weeks you could sell it for twice the price. It sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly what happened in Netherlands during the 17th century. In 1637, the country was swept up in what became known as Tulip Mania. Prices climbed almost every single day. People sold their homes, borrowed monies, and rushed to buy tulip bulbs, hoping to sell them for even more. Some of the rarest bulbs became so valuable that they were worth as much as a large house in the heart of the city. But the most fascinating part wasn't the price. They were buying hope. The hope that tomorrow someone else would be willing to pay even more. And that's how every financial bubble is born. The price stops reflecting real value. Instead, it becomes driven by one powerful belief that the price will keep rising forever. And as long as everyone around you keeps buying, it feels like the party can never end.
The flower never changed, only the price people were willing to pay. Value was no longer based on the flower, it was based on the belief. It was based on the belief that someone else would always pay more. Every bubble begins the same way. People stop buying an asset and start buying expectations.
In the late 1990s, the world experienced the internet in a way it never had before. It felt like the beginning of a new era. Every day, dozens of new companies appeared. All of business had to do was add .com to its name, and investors were ready to pour in millions of dollars. Many of these companies generate little or no profit. Some didn't even have a finished product, but that didn't seem to matter. Their stock prices soared by hundreds of percent and their valuation climbed into the billions. People believed the internet would change everything, and they were absolutely right. But they made one critical mistake. They assumed that if the technology was destined to transform the world, then every company connected to it would automatically become successful. Eventually, investors begin asking one simple question: where is the profit? For many companies, there was no good answer. Within months, the markets lost trillions of dollars in value. Thousand companies disappeared, but the internet didn't. In fact, it was after the crash that many of the companies that really changed the world began to emerge.
The internet was real. The excitement was real. But not every company deserved its price. Great technology doesn't guarantee great businesses. Sometimes, the future is real, but the expectations arrive too early. Markets can crash. Great ideas usually don't. The biggest mistake is confusing a revolutionary technology with an endlessly rising investment.
The dot-com bubble didn't happen because the internet was a bad idea. The internet really changed the world. The mistake was that people assumed any company with .com in its name would automatically become successful. By the early 2000s, almost everyone believed that real estate was the safest investment you could make. Home prices kept rising year after year, banks became increasingly willing to approve mortgages, and millions of people bought houses convinced they would be worth much more just a few years later. Gradually, one simple idea took hold: real estate prices always go up. That belief became the foundation of the bubble. Banks began issuing loans to people who could barely afford the payments. Investors bought multiple properties, expecting prices to keep climbing. As long as the housing market continued to rise, the system appeared to work perfectly. But when prices finally stopped climbing, everything began to unravel. Homeowners started defaulting on their mortgages, property values fell, and the financial system, built on the assumption that housing prices would never decline, began to collapse. Millions of people lose their homes. Some of the world's largest financial institutions found themselves on the brink of failure. The global economy entered one of the worst financial crises in modern history, and it all begins with one simple belief: that prices could keep rising forever.
The problem wasn't real estate. It was the belief that prices could only move in one direction. When everyone believes something is impossible to fail, people stop paying attention to the risks. Every financial crisis starts long before the collapse. It begins the moment confidence replaces caution.
The most dangerous financial beliefs are the ones that feels like unquestionable truth. Before the 2008 financial crisis, millions of people believed that housing prices could never go down. That single belief helped inflate one of the largest financial bubbles in history. Just a few years ago, most people couldn't understand why anyone would pay for a digital image that anyone else could view online for free. Many laughed at the idea, convinced it would never become anything serious. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. NFTs began selling for millions of dollars. Unknown artists became famous overnight, and their collections sold out within minutes. Every day brought headlines about another record-breaking sale. But people weren't just buying digital art. They were buying the hope of making money. Many never stopped to ask what they were actually purchasing. The question wasn't, what is this worth so much? It was, how much can I sell it for tomorrow? And that's when history began repeating itself once again. As excitement started to fade, fewer buyers entered the market. Prices fell rapidly. Trading activity slowed to a fraction of what it had been. Collections that had recently been worth millions of dollars lose most of their market value. The blockchain technology behind NFTs didn't disappear. By the way, but the excitement surrounding NFTs turned it out to be far greater than their practical value for most buyers.
The image didn't change, only the price people believed it was worth. Most buyers weren't collecting art. They were hoping someone else would pay even more. Every bubble reaches the same moment, when there are no new buyers left. And that's when expectations meet reality.
Over the past few years, almost everyone heard about cryptocurrencies. Some believe they represent the future of the global financial system. Others see them as nothing more than a temporary trend. But no matter which side you are on, there is one question worth asking. Why do people buy a particular asset? Is it because they truly understand how it works, or because they believe it will be able to sell it for a higher price? History shows that during periods of rapid growth, many people stop analyzing. Instead, a simple belief takes over. If the price went up yesterday, it will probably go up tomorrow. That's the moment when expectations begin to matter more than facts. But it's important to remember one thing. A higher price doesn't automatically mean an asset is overvalued. And a low price doesn't necessarily mean it's undervalued. The true value of any asset depends on the benefit it provides and whether people are willing to use it even after the excitement has faded. That's why before making any investment decision, the most important question isn't how much will this be worth tomorrow. It's why does it have value in the first place?
Every investment has two different prices: its real value and people's expectations. Expectations are driven by emotions. Value is built over time. Markets become dangerous when expectations grow much faster than real value.
Any asset, whether it's stocks, real estate, cryptocurrency, or a new technology, should be understood for the value it creates, not simply for the hope that its price will keep rising.
Tulips, internet companies, real estate, NFTs, crypto, different assets, the same story. Every bubble feels unique until you compare it with history. Until you compare it with history. The next bubble may not look like the last one. That's why they're so difficult to recognize while they're happening. The people inside a bubble almost never realize they're inside one. History doesn't repeat itself, but human behavior often does.